What's up developers, and welcome back to a new video where we will make our component dynamic. Quick pause. Do you want to support the channel and want me to continue on creating content? You can support the channel on Patreon right now, where you get benefits such as a private Discord group where you can share your coding issues and other developers will help you out. If you are interested to join, the link will be in the description down below. Up until this point, we created a basic parent component called carList that we have open right now, which is calling our child component called car. What this will do is rendering one static car that we defined right here. It's just a basic HTML template that's being returned back. Now the next step in the component process is working with props. Up until this point, I'm assuming that components make sense. But why do we need props inside our component? Now props stand for properties. And keep in mind that it's not required to use props when working with components, but it allows you to write reusable components, which will lead into less code, which will then lead into better productivity. Now how should this look in code? What we need to do first is to create a new cars object inside the car list that we have, right here, that will be passed inside the car component, which will then create a dynamic component for us. So right above our return value, let's create a new constant called car and let's set it equal to an object. Now what you can do inside the object is obviously defining attributes and values. So let's do that. Let's say that the first one has an ID of 1, comma. On the line below, we have a name of a car, which will be Mercedes. We have a description, which has a value of keeping ahead through technology. Then we have a product type, which will be luxury vehicle. And lastly, we have an image URL. Now, we can grab the image URL from our car.js, which will be this link right here. Let's copy it. I don't want to go through the process of saving our images locally right now, but we will definitely do that later on. Now, we created our car object right here, but we still have static data inside our car.js. Whenever you want to pass data to your child component or any other component, you need to do this right inside the component you're trying to call. Right here, we're trying to call the car component. So let's go inside of it and let's hit enter twice. And right above, we're going to pass in data, which can be the entire car constant or object that we have right here, but it can also be separate attributes. So let's start off by passing in separate attributes first. It's pretty simple. We basically need to define an attribute called ID. And let's set it equal to curly braces. And in here, we need to refer to our object, which is car. So let's say car, but whenever you hit dot, you can access attributes. And what we want is the ID first. Now be aware that you don't need to add a comma to separate them. Then on the line below, you can say, well, we have a name too, which we're going to grab from the car constant dot name. And let's do the same thing for the description. So description is equal to curly braces, car dot description. We have a product type, which is equal to curly braces, car dot product type. Now lastly, we have the image URL, which is equal to car dot image URL. Now if we save it and navigate back to Brave, refresh the page, nothing is happening yet, which makes sense because we haven't actually done anything with our props. So if we navigate to our car.js, now let's actually go right below our parent div and add curly braces of a console.log. And what we want to console log is actually our entire property. Now it's pretty simple to do that. All you need to do is write down this dot props. Save it. Let's navigate back to Brave. Let's inspect the page. Now let me make the screen a little bit bigger. All right, let me zoom in the console. So let's open it. And right here, you can see that we have passed in our entire object that we added inside our parent component that we have passed through our child component. Now with the syntax that we added inside our console log, we can basically grab one value from it. So it's pretty simple. Right after props, let's add a dot because we want to access another attribute. And let's say the name. Save it, navigate back, and right here, Mercedes has been printed out. Now what we can do right now is basically remove the entire line that we have. All right, and replace the values that we have added statically right here with our props. Now let's delete the entire source, and we don't need the double quote either. Add curly braces, let's say this.props.image URL. Save it, navigate back, let's refresh it, and as you can see, the image is still visible. Let me actually align my screens next to each other, which makes it a little bit easier. Alright, now what's next? Well, we have a name right here. Let's replace that with curly braces, this.props.name. We have the vehicle type, which is once again this.props.product type. Save it, and you can see that it has been refreshed and the values are still dynamic. Before I wrap up the video, I want to quickly show you some patterns that you should know when it comes down to props. And the first one will be the fact that if a prop value is missing, it will not throw an error. But what it will do is returning a value of empty. If we navigate back to our car list, and we're currently returning a name of curly braces car.name, but if we remove it and add a set of double quotes, save it, you'll see that Mercedes has been deleted. But if we inspect the page right now, console, whoops, I deleted the console log in the car.js, excuse me. Let's say console.log, curly braces, this.props, save it, go back, make it a little bit bigger, and right here, you can see that the value is indeed empty. And I find this a very good thing because you can use different tools that certain values should have a default, or they can even be set optional. Now the value can even be changed to true. And it's pretty simple as well. Let's make it a little bit bigger again. Go back to our car list. And instead of passing in an equal sign and double quotes, let's remove it, save it, and let's open our console again. And right here, you can see that name has been set to true, which does not make sense, but you can see that the return value is a Boolean. What JavaScript does right here is checking if the value of name has been set on the component. If it hasn't, it will set it equal to a Boolean of true. You can also pass in a value inside the component that you are not grabbing from the object. So let's set name back equal to car.name, and right below name, let's say driver is equal, double quotes, Dari. Save it, open our object, and right here you can see that driver is equal to Dari, which is actually static in a component-driven object. We're currently adding all attributes one by one. Now there's even an easier way to do it, and that's passing in the prop as a wall. Let's remove all attributes that we have right here. And if we save it obviously and close this off, you can see that everything has been deleted in our local host. And what we can do right here is add curly braces, and in here say dot, so triple dot, followed by the object that you're trying to pass, which is car, which will refer to our constant car. If we save it and make it a little bit smaller again, you can see that the values have been printed out again, even though we haven't passed in ID, name, description, product type, and image URL. What we're doing right here is passing in the spread operator, which is the triple dot followed by the object name. This allows an expression to be expanded in places where multiple arguments are expected. And that's kind of what we're trying to do right here, right? We are trying to add multiple attributes inside our car component. Now, if we inspect the page one more time, go to the console, you can see that we have an object right here, open it, and you can see that the same exact object have been printed out, but with a lot less code. Alright then, this was it for this video. We went over the basics of props in React and how you could dynamically render content in a component. In the next video, we will be diving into rendering multiple objects to our component. If you do like my content and you want to see more, leave this video a thumbs up, and if you're new to this channel, please hit the subscribe button.